So, you're looking to cleanse the Empire of Chaos Filth, but you're not sure how to go about it? Don't worry, we're here to help you out. So Chaosbane has 4 different playable characters, and every one of them is unique in his own way. This guide's gonna help you pick up the hero that's most suited to your way of killing things. We're gonna take a quick look through the abilities and playstyle of every character, and then I'm gonna add some personal notes to each. So let's get a move on. We're going to start off with the Slayer. The Slayer is a melee class, and at first sight he seems to be your classical berserker archetype. He's meant to be in the thick of melee, with a basic skill that allows you to move around quickly in the form of Chained Axe, which will only allow you to get closer to the enemy, as you cannot go through them using it. It's not much of an escape skill, but you can avoid some AoE using it. The Slayer's main appeal is that he can deal a lot of melee damage. He's an aggressive and reckless character, and any way you'd want to build him, he'd end up dealing tons of damage. He builds up his energy as he attacks with basic generator skills like every other hero, but if you're going to play as a Slayer, you also need to be aware of his secondary resource, his Rage. Rage will build up as he fights and uses different abilities, and many abilities as well as your base damage will benefit greatly from it. Now once the Slayer stops fighting, his Rage will decrease, and soon after it's gone, so will his energy. That way, you're even more motivated to always stay in combat if you want to not let your energy go to waste. Now as for types of damage you'll be dealing as the Slayer, it is of course mostly physical, but there's also bleeding and fire. In fact, there's a lot of fire damage in Bragi Axebider's kit, and there's even a whole endgame set that specifically builds around it, but it's all melee, all the time. You'll jump around and cause earthquakes, make hundreds bleed at a time, and batter your way through hordes of enemies with ease, whirlwind around while the dwarf laughs maniacally, and overall have a great time as a Slayer. Do note that he's also not as squishy as his incessant death wish might have you believe. With good use of his skills, Bragi is one of the tankiest characters in the game. So personally, I enjoy playing as the Slayer quite a lot, and I recommend him as a beginner class for people that want to play melee, as he's both easy to learn and extremely powerful, and fun too. Now let's move on to Conrad Volan, the Empire Soldier. The Soldier is the game's second melee class, and he's certainly very different from the Slayer. As you can judge by his weapons and look, the Soldier is a more defensively oriented hero. His basic skill will provide you with damage reduction and powerful crowd control, marking Conrad as a defensive and supportive character. The Soldier's main feature is, obviously, that he is hard to kill. He comes with a plethora of defensive abilities, both active and passive. He can stun enemies pretty much on demand, provide very powerful stackable buffs to a party of players, and at the same time deal very good area of effect damage. Conrad is surprisingly powerful when it comes to dealing with large hordes of enemies. His energy does not decrease outside of combat, and in fact, he has a passive ability that will allow you to gain energy while not fighting. The Soldier will generally deal damage that is outright physical, and has many tools that allow him to benefit greatly from counter-strike damage, basically thorns, damaging enemies whenever they hit him. Many of his kills also add a percentage of this counter-strike damage to their own, making him capable of great bursts of damage. His shield charge skill is extremely fun to use, and it allows you to turn an otherwise slow character into a very mobile powerhouse. As the Soldier, you'll smash enemies into the ground, blast them with your blunderbuss, rally your allies with different banners, and protect your friends while heavily debuffing enemies, if you so want. You'll be the only class in the game capable of making a full support build too. Now as a personal note, I'd like to add that Conrad is fun to play, and indeed very powerful against large hordes, but his single target damage is very lackluster, and that's gonna sting in every boss fight. I'd recommend it mostly for group play. Coming up third, we have Alessa, the Wolf Waywatcher. At first sight, you'd think Alessa is some kind of assassin, sneaking around and evading combat, while eliminating targets with a dagger and bow. That would be partially correct. The Waywatcher is agile, extremely mobile in fact, to the point of having a basic ability that allows you to dodge roll through as many enemies as you wish, at no cooldown or cost. You can even pair that up with a passive ability that increases all damage dealt and gains you energy whenever you move. She's clearly not meant to stand still and get hit, and has all the tools she needs to either stay away from enemies or kill them way before they can hurt her. She can either deal heavy physical damage, or focus on poison, or even both. What makes her entirely unique, however, is that Alessa is the only hero in Chaosbane that can summon allies to aid her. In fact, you can build her so as to constantly have a large army of Dryads supporting you, dealing damage, tanking hits for you, and even spawning more Dryads as they attack. Otherwise, you can always build her as a pretty standard ranged character with excellent killing power. As the Waywatcher, you'll generally be killing your whole screen well before anything threatens your life, summoning a small army of allies, and even providing slight buffs and healing powers to your party if you so desire. Personally, I'd recommend Alessa as the best beginner character, especially for people who prefer ranged combat, as she's not hard to understand, unique in her summoning aspect, safe, and extremely powerful at range. Honestly, probably the most easy to play character in the whole game. And last, we're gonna discuss Elentier, the High Elf Archmage. Finally, Elentier. He looks like your standard arrogant elven mage and sure plays like it too. His mobility is fairly average, with a short cooldown teleportation ability, as well as multiple knockbacks and stuns available to him to keep himself safe. His most unique feature, however, is his basic etheric manipulation. This allows him to manually control any projectile spell that he has launched, while also moving and casting other things at the same time. Elentier obliterates his enemies, either with raw magical damage or with fire, and he has so many different damage enhancers and sources that he can stack that he will certainly delete screens of enemies with ease. His single target damage is far from lacking as well, but the Archmage certainly has very little staying power. In fact, one bad use of your teleportation will generally end in death, as the squishy mage just isn't built for taking damage. Now, I wouldn't personally recommend Elentier for beginners, unless you really want to be a mage. His mechanics make him very powerful, with possibly the highest damage potential in the game, and he is fun to play as well. But he's definitely the most complex character to learn and play effectively, and it takes a lot of mechanical skill to get used to. Now, of course, these are just broad outlines of every character, just a beginner's guide, and there are definitely many ways to play each one of them effectively. But let us know in the comment section below, which character do you prefer the most, or which have you played up to now? If you enjoyed the video, leave us a like, subscribe if you want, and make sure to check out our website over at gaminginstincts.com for more gaming content from an unbiased perspective.